if athletes decide to unionize, now that's a whole different game changer in terms of what it can mean for the universities, what sort of demands they could put on these programs, and how they could be able to take the power back into their own hands. And so I think for right now, the NCAA is content to seeing where the tide has shifted. This is not a new conversation, but it's never had the type of momentum that it has, gained now. And so seeing how the tide has shifted, I think the NCAA has decided like, hey, let's try to get ahead of what may be some monumental losses and make it as appealing for these kids so that they don't decide to unionize and make our lives hell. Because the minute that they do, like organized labor will be the thing that just totally changes the landscape of sports at the collegiate level. So I think it has very little, if anything at all, to do with actual evolution, good-heartedness, or doing it because it's the right thing to do. I think they would be fine to exploit this talent and this crop of essentially, a workforce that provides them with a live entertainment element to their university that otherwise would not exist but for their labor for as long as they could. And now that gravy train has come to an end.
Yeah, and it's sort of insidious too, because like, as we've said, it's probably not going to be like a very small percentage are going to be able to make significant money, but there's going to be that like maybe I could make money, which might cause some of them to not look to other ways to get sort of what they have coming to them in terms of unionization, that sort of thing. But more importantly, for those who can make significant amount of money, and apparently some have already started working on it. So there's a men's basketball player at the University of Iowa, Jordan Bohannon, who's announced plans for an apparel line that will debut on Thursday. So hitting the ground running, this thing just came out and there's already gonna be an apparel line. University of Wisconsin starting quarterback Graham Mertz posted a video with a personal logo. So for them, this probably is better than just some unionized pay, maybe for the highest percentile. And so why does that matter? Well, I would imagine that if you were gonna try to get some sort of nationwide union movement, having the highest profile athletes be a part of it would lend more, like get more eyes on it and all that. But if they strip them away with a little bit of money from endorsements and stuff like that, that might hurt the movement overall. A movement that's already gonna be difficult because let's just identify, it is a transient workforce. It lasts for a few years. That is going to make a union effort harder than some sort of entrenched thing where people have been there for literally decades. In theory, you could have maybe some of the support staff get involved or something like that, but it is a bit more transient. So I wonder to what extent this will work.
I'm gonna throw you another curveball, John. There is a growing movement among sort of top tier talent, particularly in the football and basketball arena and track and field, where they are now considering whether they are going to take their talents to historically black colleges and universities. And so because of the external racial reckoning that we've been watching in America, more and more parents, more and more student athletes, and more families are actually looking at HBCUs as viable options, despite not having the popularized athletic opportunities that might exist at a Duke in terms of television contracts and things of that nature. What I predict is going to start happening is that universities are going to start essentially doing what professional organizations do with free agencies, talking to recruits about the ways that they can make money if they go to their school, the opportunities that are there surrounding the school. Not saying that they're going to necessarily facilitate that, but saying, hey, if you come here as opposed to going to a Howard or a North Carolina A&T, look at what's available to you, look at what's around, so on and so forth. So unfortunately, I have no doubt that the big guy will find a way to turn this around in some sort of nefarious attempt to keep his hands in the pockets of these young people.
That is certainly possible. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Charles, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, where can people take a look at your work?
You can find me at Twitter, Jr. That is a great place. I'm also on Instagram, Charles Coleman Jr. You can find me on Instagram, CFC40_official. And my one verified account is on Facebook. That's Charles F. Coleman Jr. So you can follow me there. You guys are really smart. So The Facebook account and the Twitter account is probably the one you want to go to. Instagram is just like sneakers and cigars, because that's
nice.
Always a pleasure, John. Really, really enjoy.
Great to have you on.
Thank you so much again for having me.
Thank you, always. And for those of you watching at home, thank you so much for joining us. Really fast, I just want to read this one from members' comment. Thomas says, the forest fires in California were caused by lasers from airplanes in space. They'll come up with something as well. Yeah, they're gonna come up with some kind of excuse. Oh God, Wayne expects that Trump would have set off a nuke to break up the heat dome. It's a good idea, it's worth trying. Anyway, yeah, Noorani is pointing out how bad the heat is for the crops and everything. Yeah, there's consequences across so many different areas. Anyway, yeah, I know we're running out of time. I love reading the comments. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Indisputable is coming up. You go to youtube.com/indisputable_TYT to tune into that. Adrienne Lawrence is gonna be the co-host, so it should be awesome. She's gonna be joining us on Thursday as well. But until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richard. Good to have you with me. We got a great show today. You don't want to miss my I Wish a Karen Would segment that's coming in hot and heavy. Also, we have as a guest later in the program, President and CEO of National Immigration Forum podcast host, only in America, Ali Noorani will be with us. And breaking down news of the day, my dear sister, Adrienne Lawrence, TYT contributor, host of Overruled on Rebel HQ, attorney at law. And my bullpen guest will be Bryson Gray. Bryson Gray, this is a Bryson Gray, interesting person, Christian conservative artist, producer, and personality. That's just going to be a live one. Trust me on that one. Ladies and gentlemen, news of the day, my top story. During Saturday's US Olympic track and field trials, there's a remarkable individual who displayed significant courage. Her name is Gwen. Gwen Berry placed third in the hammer throw. That means she is strategic and strong, securing her spot to compete in Tokyo. Well, most of the attention was not connected to her performance or her athleticism, but instead connected to her independence. Well, she decided not to participate in the national anthem, which, by the way, she has the right to do so. She was suspended back in 2019 because she had the audacity to hold up a fist in protest of a local game at that time. She was suspended from this very same committee. We're going to talk about why this is insanity on top of insanity. When she took her place on the podium, the national anthem played, she turned away from the flag. Afterward, Berry told the press that her protest had been spontaneous because she did not expect them to play it at that time, according to what she was told. The person who decided to go on Fox News and talk trash about this woman, his name is Seth John. Well, Seth is a character himself. So let me first read a quote from Gwen Berry. Gwen says, "I feel like it was a setup." Berry said, laughing per the Washington Post, "I feel like they did that on purpose. And I was pissed, to be honest. I was thinking about what should I do. Eventually, I just stayed there and just swayed. I put my shirt over my head. I know they did that on purpose, but it'll be all right. I see what's up. You see, I like that." And then she came out with a tweet. Now, typically, when you have an athlete, especially at this level, with this kind of global pressure, this kind of America-dominated pressure, this kind of patriot pressure, they come back and they apologize. Well, she did not. Her tweet said, "I said what I said. I meant what I said. Stop playing with me, period. Hashtag activist athlete." Can I just say this? This is not your granddaddy's civil rights movement. That's not what this is anymore. These folks are not playing. She said what she said and she meant it. Stop playing with her. Well, she will continue to advance, but something else quite interesting. Former US soccer Paralympic team captain, remember this guy? Seth John angered people with a speech during the US Soccer Federation's annual meeting. The USSF removed John from the Players Council on Monday. He has since issued an apology for his remarks, while the USSF has issued a statement condemning his racist rhetoric. So who do you think Fox News brought on to talk trash about Gwen? The racist guy. So here it is.
Berry later responded saying, quote, "I feel like it was a setup and they did it on purpose. They had enough opportunities to play the national anthem before we got up there. It was real disrespectful." Seth John represented the US overseas on the soccer field at the 2015 Pan American Games and joins us now. Seth, what is your reaction to this?
First word that comes to mind is disgraceful. It's ridiculous for her to even state that she felt like she was set up here on the podium. That's when they played the anthem.
Now, damn it, that's caucasity. You are literally suspended, removed, excommunicated for saying racist things against black people, and you are on national television talking about a black woman not being able to express her constitutional freedom, her independence. Wow, they called you You're the guy they called. Let me go to the quote from this nut. He said, and I quote, this is what got him in trouble. He said, and I quote, "I keep hearing how our country was founded on the backs of slaves, even though approximately only 8% of the entire population even owned slaves. Every race in the history of mankind has been enslaved by another demographic at some point." This guy said this in a very public forum. This guy said even more than that. He cited that black people killed 95% of other black people, just ridiculous statistics that are not true. They censored him for it, said he has to go, but he's the guy that Fox News decided to dig up from the damn ashes to make a comment antithetical to this dear sister who is now going to the Olympics. Let me bring Adrienne in. Adrienne, what do you see here?
Well, I see a lot of nonsense going on right now in all levels, from kind of what was going on with the IOC, with the committee in particular, and their unwillingness to maybe give her a heads up in terms of when the anthem would be played. She made abundantly clear that she was not comfortable being out there when the anthem would be played, and thus she had prepared herself for that. For it to kind of be, dropped on her at the last minute, it's problematic because the reality is that the nation that's supposed to be one nation under God representing everyone has not represented everyone. So to push it on her and to make it feel like she is being set up, that's a hell of a thing. And it's also really problematic because there is so much division in this country due in part for the fact that Black people have been mistreated and nothing's been done to rectify that, and nothing is being done, yet the oppression continues. Let
me tell you why I believe Gwen Berry. I did some independent research, and Seth was incorrect on Fox News when he said, well, she's at the podium, they played the national anthem. Well, in the Olympic trials, they only played the national anthem twice a day. They do not play the national anthem at every podium award ceremony. They do so in the Olympic Games, but they do not do so in the Olympic trials. So when she came out and said, listen, they told me they were not going to play the national anthem until this particular time, I believe her. I think her statement is accurate, and based on the rules of the Olympic trials, they only played that national anthem twice a day. And for everyone who continues to say, what did she expect? She was on the podium. They played the national anthem. That is only reserved for the actual Olympic Games. Gwen knew what she was talking about.
Absolutely, and you know what? The thing is, earlier this year, the International Olympics Committee, the IOC, it changed the rules that allow athletes to protest at these types of domestic events, these trials, without being penalized. But the thing is, that won't necessarily be the case when we hit Tokyo and we have the actual Olympic Games. And they plan to enforce this Rule 50 that essentially says if you protest in any way, any kind of racial injustice, that you will face penalties. And the interesting part of this, the hypocrisy, is that meanwhile in Geneva, Switzerland, just yesterday, the UN human rights chief issued a landmark report urging countries worldwide to do more to help end discrimination, violent, systemic racism against Black people, and to make amends. And so you have one thing coming out of Geneva, Switzerland, that's supposed to represent the world, saying, countries, you need to make amends and fix this. And you have another thing coming out of Switzerland via the IOC saying we are gonna completely and totally ignore oppression, and anyone who in any way brings that to light or brings it up while we are on the national stage of the Olympics will be penalized.
A lot of cats get it twisted that own stuff. The Olympics should not get it twisted as if they own the people. They own the franchise, but they do not own the people. And we look at our own domestic professional sporting industry, where we have owners in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. You own the franchise, you do not own the people. However, they have operated in a way that has literally taken away the independent expression of individuals during peaceful protests. You don't get more peaceful than being on the sideline taking a knee. They didn't have any problem when a player would take a knee in the NFL to pray to white Jesus. They had no problem with that. but you have a problem when somebody in the NFL takes a knee to protest the treatment of black and brown people as it relates to law enforcement in America. You don't have a problem with the knee, you have a problem with why the knee was taken.
Yep, and the thought that, hey, you are acknowledging or bringing to mind the oppression that you have sustained, and we want to pretend it doesn't exist. We want white supremacy, the patriarchy. We want all the systems of oppression to flourish, and when you bring them to light, when you acknowledge them in some way, no matter how you do it, whether it is with force or it's nonviolence, that's the problem. And the thing is we're past the point of sitting back and taking it. This is not gonna happen in terms of, hey, we're just gonna ignore it and act like this isn't a problem. It is a problem, and it's something that we are facing, and we're gonna speak out.
Speaking of problem, Tucker Carlson. So he has now gone on record on his show. This is so interesting. He is now alleging, I'm gonna try to get through this story without laughing. He is alleging that the NSA, the National Security Agency, is spying specifically on him in an effort to take his show off the air. He led in by saying that this war on terror is now being waged against American citizens, and he is considering himself to be a victim of the American government. Now, how does Tucker Carlson know this information? Well, according to Tucker, he decided, or he engaged with some conversation with some mysterious individual who was able to reveal text messages and emails that only he had access to, and it was all part of a story he was working on. And they plan to leak this information in order to take his show off the air. Now, I have a few questions. Number one, if you're working on a legitimate story and they release your legitimate correspondence for that legitimate story, who would take you off the air for that? It's a legitimate story, unless if there's something else happening here. So Carlson said on his show that he had sent a Freedom of Information Act request related to an alleged information gathered by the NSA and other agencies on his show. Here's the breakdown of some of the reports. The department seized phone records of 3 Post reporters. This was a real case, by the way. The department seized phone records of 3 Post reporters, and all of these Post reporters, in 2017, the DOJ sought phone records, email records, CNN, Pentagon reporter Barbara Starr covering her communications in June and July of 2017, and the list goes on. Here's the point. When all of these actual journalists were being investigated by the federal government, Tucker Carlson had not one word to say to defend them. So I don't know if Tucker is telling the truth or not about him being under investigation or him being spied upon by the NSA. But here's some of what he said.
Yesterday, we heard from a whistleblower within the US government who reached out to warn us that the NSA, the National Security Agency, is monitoring our electronic communications and is planning to leak them in an attempt to take the show off the air. Now, that's a shocking claim, and ordinarily we'd be skeptical of it. It's illegal for the NSA to spy on American citizens. It's a crime. It's not a third world country. Things like that should not happen in America. But unfortunately, they do happen, and in this case, they did happen. The whistleblower, who is in a position to know, repeated back to us information about a story that we are working on that could have only come directly from my texts and emails. There's no other possible source for that information, period. The NSA captured that information without our knowledge and did it for political reasons. The Biden administration is spying on us. We have confirmed that.
You confirmed it with who, Tucker? A mysterious individual. You cannot cite the source. You can't even cite the story. You won't give us a hint as to what the story's about. Here's a great idea. If you really believe the NSA is coming after you, sir, I suggest you go ahead and let us know what it's about, so that if it comes out, we can all be prepared because you told us the truth from the beginning. All of this smoke and mirror commentary. Adrienne, here's what I think, sister. And maybe I'm wrong, but here's what I believe is happening. I think Tucker Carlson has some information out there on him that's embarrassing. That's what I think. And I think somehow somebody has gotten a hold of it, somehow. And in order to mitigate what happens from this exposure of information, He has made a fantasy story about the NSA, government corruption, Biden coming after him being in the middle of some type of coordinated conspiracy from the government. That is why this information is going to be leaked out to the American public to get his show taken off air. That's just my belief.
All right, so I respect that belief. All I can do is sit here and await and pray that it has nothing to do with a golden shower. But the reality is, what Tucker's doing right now is creating a narrative of victimhood and kind of giving that impression that the government can't be trusted and that he is something worthy of being heard and the government will try to suppress him. But let's say the NSA is actually tracking Tucker Carlson, which it should be, because so many people who jumped into the Capitol uninvited on January 6th said Fox News had indoctrinated them. But really, terrorism, white terrorism from white supremacy groups are the main threat to our nation. And Tucker broadcasts notions of racial superiority, hostility toward immigrants and marginalized groups, and myths of an embattled white majority. And so as he continues to push these narratives, what he's doing is fueling white supremacy groups and bringing them out into the open and causing them to be more aggressive, as we saw on January 6th. So he needs to be tracked. He also needs to be shut down, but we can't expect Fox to do the right thing.
You know, what's interesting about his words, Adrienne, is that he never said it would be false information leaked. He never said the information was going to be manipulated. He actually pretty much agreed that if it comes out, the information is true. So if the information is true, if the information is legal, if the information is accurate, and if the information is garnered during the collection of information because of your broadcast, why would that risk putting your show off the air? I'm not connecting the dots here. Am I missing something, Adrienne?
Well, the thing is, that's a good question, and I think that's a great point, because they love to distract. As we saw with Matt Gaetz, it's like, look over here. Don't look here. And so Tucker Carlson is building that exact same narrative to justify keeping him on the air. But the thing is, he's also done and said just about everything. He's involved in the sexual harassment lawsuits there. Also, what they found out that the person working and writing on his show was running all sorts of fake accounts and involved in all sorts of oppressive, racist, and sexist and homophobic things. And he has said a lot of things that would get a normal person kicked off air. So it makes you wonder, what more is coming?
Yeah, here's what I think Tucker did, Adrienne. I think he watched a rerun of the Will Smith movie, Enemy of the State. And he said, this is a good idea. This is what I'm going to tell people is about to happen to me to cover this information. You got to think about it. The NSA, I mean, that's a heavy gun to come after a guy on TV.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, what else is he up to if that is actually accurate and true? But if he is just afraid of having facts come out, that's so typical. So typical. This whole cancel culture. No, it's called accountability. Good luck with that.
Very well said. Very well said. All right, we got a whole lot more of show to go. Don't forget, we have the Bullpen. We have a great debate happening around LGBTQ rights. We're gonna probably throw in some traditional marriage discussion in that as well. But the guy who I'm debating today in the Bullpen, well, he's loads of fun. All right, just trust me on that. We got more. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
we'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? So now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone?
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me into Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show. That's great. Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT. The place is like 95% TYT on.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Tank and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
People who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always changed this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read some of these viewer comments, and thank you all for chiming in. Make sure that you watch us on the YouTube channel, Indisputable TYT. We exceeded our goal last week. We have well over 100,000 subscribers. We had over 2 million views last week alone. That's because of you, all right? So make sure you join that YouTube page, that YouTube channel, Indisputable TYT. Follow us on all social media, Indisputable TYT. And make sure you tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a coworker to subscribe to Indisputable TYT. All right, here are the comments. TYT member Diana says, the day the US makes meaningful slavery reparations for Black Americans is the day an activist like Gwen may decide to put her hand on her heart for the national anthem, for fist raise and solidarity for Gwen. Bless you, thank you for that, absolutely. YouTube super chat. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you, homie. Sean Plebe. This is such a great show. Also, the Bullpen is the most educational segment as long as the person opposite of Doc has done their research. Dr. Rashad is a force to be reckoned with. TYT for life. TYT for life, homie. all the way. And that's why I call it the bullpen. In baseball, the bullpen is where a pitcher warms up to go out into the game. You watch the bullpen because that is a place where you learn, you warm up, and you go out into the real world and you educate and inform people around you. That's why I call it the bullpen. All right, Charles Massey, Dr. Richey, you and Adrienne are killing it. All caps, by the way. I really enjoy news I can relate to from respected black professionals. Thank you for your good work. That's awesome. You called me a professional. Nicole Smith says, Fox News disclaimer, the following is a work of fiction. Any similarities between events or individuals living or dead is completely coincidental. That's right, Tucker Carlson does not have a news show. He simply has an entertainment show. Viewers are battling over favorite segments. Adrienne Lawrence, my favorite. You got a bunch of fans, Adrienne. Dr. Sugar Johnson says, here for the bullpen. Pam Monholland says, no, my favorite is I wish a Karen would. It's all good, it's all good. Subliminal Sapper says, conservatives, cancel culture is ruining our country. Also, cancel that person because they don't agree with me. Travis Moore, Tucker needs a safe space where he won't melt. Oh, poor baby. All right, and we got a lot more. Kyle 8315 says, Rashad, I don't know how you listen to these fools enough to get your material for this show without going insane, but you deserve your own Olympic medal for that. Well, let's work on it. Let's write the committee and say debate needs to be an Olympic sport. Let's get on that immediately. I mean, hell, there are some Olympic sports. I'm like, that's a sport? Okay. We got a lot more. That's all I can get you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is some really, really sad information, a sad story. I'm highlighting these stories because they exist in the context of why police reform is required. It should be mandated by all communities, not just black and brown communities, not just progressive communities, but all communities. Let me take you to Arkansas. A 17-year-old kid, a child, was putting a jug of antifreeze behind the back of his tire so his vehicle would not roll into the officer's car. He had just been pulled over. He was working on his truck. His truck had an issue where if he parked it, it would have a tendency to roll back. So when he got pulled over, he was being courteous to make sure that this vehicle that he was working on did not hit the deputy's car. So he pulled out the jug of antifreeze to put it behind this tire to stop it from rolling back. And this Lonoke County sergeant killed him, shot him in the neck. The deputy is on paid administrative leave. So let me give you some background to this story. During a traffic stop last week in Arkansas, sheriff's deputy shot and killed a teenage boy who was only armed with a neon blue jug of antifreeze, according to the family members. Sergeant Michael Davis, and I've been looking high and low for a picture of this guy. Sergeant Michael Davis stopped 17-year-old Hunter Britton near Cabot, Arkansas at about 3 a.m. last Wednesday, and it's still unclear why. Hunter had been having trouble with his truck when Davis pulled in behind him outside of a local auto repair shop and flashed his emergency lights, according to the account of a 16-year-old riding with Hunter at the time. The shifting linkage in the truck was messed up. So when they pulled up, the truck was rolling back. Jesse Britton told Vice News. That's why Hunter went to get the antifreeze. Jordan King, the teen with Hunter the night of the incident, told local ABC affiliate KATV that Davis didn't say anything to Hunter before shooting him. Said nothing. Killed this 17-year-old kid. I believe the witnesses. I believe these other young people. That's a picture of Hunter with the young lady. Sad. Now, the citizens of Lonoke County, they are protesting. They are protesting this police misconduct, alleged misconduct, and I believe it is misconduct here. They are protesting because the sheriff's office, they have not given the family answers that they deserve. They are protesting because of how the other teenager was treated after they shot and killed the 17-year-old. And here's a little bit of that protest. You see, we dispense truth on this show. So let me say something very sobering to everybody watching this. If you say nothing when they're knocking on your neighbor's door, if you say nothing when they're knocking on your neighbor's door, why don't you think they're gonna end up knocking on yours? We have been screaming and shouting. The blood of unarmed black men and women, brown men and women, has been screaming and shouting from the soil. Do something. Do something about out of control policing in the United States of America. But what happened? Even with almost 95% of Americans believing some level of police reform should take place, 58% of Americans believing it should be dramatic. Hell, 51% of Republicans saying police reform is required. No police reform happens. They're not held accountable. Even now, the person who killed the 17-year-old kid who was trying to be courteous by making sure his truck did not hit this cruiser, that person is on paid administrative leave. Now, the state of Arkansas has picked up the case. We will see what happens. We're going to continue to follow it. Adrienne, I want you to give your legal expertise here as an attorney. What do you see? What are the variables you see right away?
Well, the officer is gonna have to be in a position where they've got to show that they acted reasonably under the circumstances here to even enjoy any semblance of qualified immunity. And the fact that as you mentioned, being armed with a jug of antifreeze, it wouldn't seem in any way legitimate to me for an officer to confuse that with a potentially deadly weapon such as a gun. But also, I'm sure what the officer is gonna say is that this young man was turning such that they weren't sure what he was turning around with. But the reality is that people move and people move in various directions. So for police to always assume that in any way that the person who's moving that I am stopping or speaking with must be using deadly force against me is a huge part of the problem. I just think that is extremely unreasonable, and this child has lost their lives as a result of it. And so we will see how this ends up playing out, but I think we can maybe largely garner that people might give this a little bit more attention in terms of people with power, because this was a promising young white man with a future ahead. And hey, his life was taken, and unfortunately, having a lot of black young men and black young women be murdered by police isn't enough to gain the attention of people in power. But maybe, just maybe this one will be enough.
Just maybe, we'll see what happens. Nothing can bring back the 17-year-old, just like nothing can bring back George Floyd. Nothing can bring back Breonna Taylor. Nothing can bring back the countless young men and women who have been killed by members of law enforcement for simply existing, for simply being there. But we have been saying it's out of control for a long time. But you know what else is out of control? And this is my issue with a lot of people who are protesting this right now. Some of those same people will protect policies like qualified immunity. Let's talk about qualified immunity for a minute. You know, as an attorney, Adrienne, that tort law has a way of checking an industry, checking a profession. Because of the existence of tort law, you have medical doctors better than ever. Still not 100% perfect, but they're better than ever because there's a liability connected to your profession. And because of this liability, it has caused the profession to analyze itself every year and make sure that you restrict the liabilities associated with that profession, because you do not have the same self-analytical behavior inside of the industry of policing. And because you have qualified immunity, they have no reason to be self-critical, self-analytical of their own industry to lower or restrict their liability as it relates to members of the community. Am I right on that?
Nope, you're absolutely right on that. And for those who aren't really sure what tort liability is, it's essentially harm that you do to another person. That means that I, as a member of society, can sue the other person, whereas Criminal law means that you'll have a prosecutor or someone who represents a state or government body suing on your behalf. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The fact is that with tort law, it does create checks on certain industries, so people will get better, because if everyone can sue when you're, not meeting standards, then you're probably going to get right, because hey, it'll end up being pretty costly at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's twofold. One is you start transforming the culture of the industry, and two, you attract a different kind of individual to the industry as well. A person who is well aware of the barriers and the level of accountability involved in the profession.
Yep, and the thing is, like you mentioned with policing, when the barriers aren't very high, and when the standards are extremely low in terms of performance, and there is low level of accountability, then you're gonna have a lot of people out here making these gut reactions and responses that are completely and totally unreasonable, but they're not going to change or get any better because there are no consequences. So there's really no incentive.
Let me shift gears just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would. You know what we do? We cover Karens across the country because Karens, well, they're dangerous. This is a different kind of story. And I decided to go Hollywood on you for this one. There's a recent episode of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Now, I don't watch the show. Maybe you're a fan. I've never seen the show. I've seen different snippets and advertisements for it. But there's a cast member named Sutton Stracke. Sutton Stracke, in, I guess, an attempt to deflect from the conversation, made herself the victim of a conversation about race. She weaponized her white tears, as a Karen typically would, saying, and I quote, "Being called a racist is a virus worse than COVID." Really? Let me take you to the first video. Here it is.
Are you serious with me right now? Are you that girl? I don't see color.
I really don't see color. I don't see race. I don't do it.
The word racist to me is like a virus, worse than COVID. And I can't.
To even get into this upsets me.
See, let me tell you what's happening here. First of all, she's not able to engage in an adult conversation about adult themes. Racism, bias, prejudice is a reality. Now, she's utilizing the ultimate privilege card by equating the microcosm of her belief system and saying that's actually the macrocosm of how every other person believes. She's saying, well, because I don't see color, which by the way is bull and you know it. But she's saying, well, I don't see color, means that she needs to be dismissed from the conversation about race and racism. Now, keep in mind, when you're talking about racism, there is a victim in racism. It's the person that the racist individual is being racist against. But in this conversation, she made herself, I mean, damn, Karen is crafty. She made herself the victim inside of the conversation about racism against black and brown people. Whoa. I gotta say this Karen got some skills. Let me take you to the second video. It gets worse.
That's how I feel too. I literally have laid in bed at night thinking about my conversation with Garcelle.
I don't think you realize the effect that it has on me being a black woman. There's stereotypes that people think that we don't pay for our rent, that we don't tip.
I would never even think about that.
Because you don't have to deal with that.
You were trying to hurt Garcelle as a person, not as a race. No, this is for real. Like, sorry, I get really upset about this and emotional. Yes, I'm the girl that doesn't see color. And that's bad. Why?
This is fascinating. I mean, really. Damn. She is playing the victim. Now, let me remind everyone, we have done more to combat COVID in the last 2 years than we have ever done to combat the epidemic of racism, okay? We have put more resources, emphasis, everything behind COVID than we ever did to combat the effects of racism. And let me remind this Karen and other Karens of the world, not only has racism systemically hurt people of color, especially black people, for hundreds of years, COVID-19 has affected people of color even worse because of disparities that exist in our systems of policy, rule, and democracy. So yes, it is real. And I'm sorry that it hurts your feelings to have an open conversation about this. Adrienne, do you watch The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Do you know these people?
At one point in my life, I did watch. I do not any longer. I do not know these people, and well, with good reason. That woman is absolutely nonsense. And as someone who teaches race, oppression systems, inclusion, equity, it's very difficult because I see people respond like this, and it is a form of white fragility, hoping to shift the narrative to focus on that individual as opposed to the systems of oppression that individual benefits from and plays an active role in, whether they are fully cognizant of it or not. And watching it is very difficult because there are people like this individual who they do that and they do it all the time. And the thing is, it only sets us back. It helps reinforce the power structures as they are, and it's just pathetic.
Yeah, very well said. We only have a few minutes. Let me talk about the PR wing of the KKK. They are called Sons of the Confederacy, okay? This is more of a public group, and an anonymous hacktivist uncovered that a white nationalist group, the Sons of the Confederate Veterans, had 74 members registered with emails associated with various branches of the armed forces and 91 members with emails associated with active government agencies. This is the same group who filed a lawsuit to have a Confederate statue restored in a predominantly black city in Decatur. That's Georgia, and flew a Confederate flag over a NASCAR race to protest their decision to ban the flag. They also designed a Confederate license plate, which you can still purchase at the Georgia DMV. Sons of the Confederate, there it is. You can purchase that. They are proud. I'm actually good with the fact that they don't wear hoods, but they will get a license tag. I'm glad to know exactly who you are. The data also revealed that there was significant overlap between members of this group and more violent extremist groups, such as the League of the South, a group whose members marched at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Here are some of the individuals who were outed. Let's go ahead and show their picture and what government agency they work for. So this guy came from a Georgia.gov, mvd.dor, Georgia.gov site. Vote Scott Wyatt. Wyatt represents the 97th district in the Virginia's House of Delegates, which compromises rural counties, north of Richmond, and served as the Confederate capital for much of the Civil War. And the list goes on. I'm actually very happy that they have talked about this. There's another person named Dwayne A.J. Prost, an elected coroner, Osage County, Missouri in 2020, after reaching rank of lieutenant colonel in the US Army National Guard, is also listed as an active member of the group. This person confirmed his damn membership. Prost confirmed his membership, saying that he had joined in the last 4 or 5 years after he discovered a relative had fought for the Confederacy. Had attended meetings until around 2 years ago when he became too busy for regular attendance. This man is blaming his dead family member for him joining a white nationalist organization.
Yep.
They ain't loyal.
No, they're not loyal at all. And this is, it's a way to justify joining white supremacist groups. That's what they're looking for, socially acceptable ways to join white supremacist organizations. And so uplifting the Confederacy, a group of individuals who lost against the United States, is they're in for doing that on the low key of just saying, oh, I'm just honoring history, or my ancestors. It's like, just say, I want to be racist, and just go about your way.
And that's exactly what many of them are doing. There's another cat, I must highlight him because he's connected to our and coming minds in collegiate arenas. His name is Danny W. Davis. Mr. Davis is a professor and program director at Texas A&M University and training consultant to the U.S. Army Reserve. You see a theme here? Was also found to be one of the members. He's taught courses with titles like Domestic Terrorism and the Internal Threat to America. How do you think he's teaching that course? Look at how strategic these individuals have become. It's no longer Jim Crow. It's Jim Crow Esquire. These folks got a college degree, they're educated, and now they are using the system of access, the system of education, the systems of law in order to continue their rhetoric. Adrienne, I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the thing is people still want to push this narrative that people who believe in white supremacy, people who sexually harass, people who are homophobic, transphobic, are uneducated, uncouth, lower society. No, they've always been upper echelon individuals looking to control the population, and they continue to parrot this rhetoric and this propaganda so that they can control the power structures. And so when people truly embrace the fact that all of the things that you hear aren't necessarily gospel, that the person may have an agenda to fearmonger and keep me in a certain lane, that's when people wake up and hopefully we actually have change. Until then, everyone is just sheep.
Adrienne Lawrence, legal analyst and host TYT Overruled. Also author of the 2021 Axiom Business Book of the Year, Staying in the Game. How can people get that book?
You can get it anywhere books are sold, as well as in the TYT store. It is available. Staying in the Game just won 2 more awards, International Business Book of the Year, as well as for International Book of the Year for women's issues. It's just an important thing. Invest in your professional future.
So amazing. Congratulations. You deserve all of that success and more. Always a pleasure to have you on Indisputable.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we got a lot more next. Stick and stay. Indisputable.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it.
We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of that, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award.
Best web host.
We passed 1 billion views.
Voice Award winner, News and Information Channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
Haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against Fox.
I told you we were coming.
I mean, you talk about it when it becomes a problem. Our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country. November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
That's how you do when I smack the back that I like.
Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
Welcome back to Indisputable. I'm going to read some of these viewer comments. Always remember, follow us, Indisputable TYT, Indisputable TYT. All right, members, TYT member Dana Manning says, I wish you Karen Wood, one of my favorite parts of the program. Well, thank you. Shikata Ghani says, I wore the uniform to defend the Constitution, including this woman's rights to peaceful protest. Most of the people who are offended seem to be lacking a DD Form 214. Very well said. You fight for the right so that people can or choose not to participate in anthems. It's not mandated. Super chat. Another name says, notice how these shootings all too often don't involve a warning. It's not like the kid proceeded despite being told to stop. Judge, jury, executioner. Try just the third one with no trial. Love you, Doc, my new favorite. Love you back and thank you for that and great point. Moon Dragon says, you and Adrienne are the power duo, we want more. Well, you're gonna have more, I guarantee you. J Mike's Movie Nights says, good work, brother, I appreciate you. Adrienne, I'm a follower on Instagram, love your content. Beautiful, Justice for Hunter is trending, by the way. Dragon of Paradise says, Hunter is from my hometown. Thank you for highlighting this story. It's important to highlight all of these stories. Richard Rivera says, I don't see color, I have a black cat. Crazy, right? DOTMH says, straight up government sanctioned assassination. That's what it's coming down to. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a remarkable guest. Ali Noorani, president and CEO of National Immigration Forum and host of the podcast Only in America. Ali, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Richard.
Let's talk about immigration policy. Let's get right into it. America seems to have a schizophrenic relationship with the truth as it relates to immigration policy. Give us your background, your perspective as it relates to American immigration policy.
Well, so much of the immigration debate is what we believe is going to be based on policy, right? We kind of talk about numbers of voters, we talk about, what's the policy idea in Congress, but ultimately at the end of the day, this comes down to the immigration debate comes down to culture and values, who we are as a country, who we used to be, and also who we're going to be, and how do we knit together the range of cultures that make our nation special, and use and create a story that people can relate to, they feel themselves in. That ultimately results in a much more constructive, sane, humane, compassionate approach to immigration policy.
What do you think the American sentiment, I can't say American government, but the American sentiment started to lose its way as it relates to a compassionate connection to immigration policy?
So I've been thinking a lot about actually the last 10 years, and I would actually go back to the beginning of the Syrian refugee crisis, when we started to see millions of Syrian refugees seeking protection from a terrible war in Syria, and they were coming to Europe. That is when we saw really the weaponization of the global migration narrative, both in Europe and then in 2015 here with Donald Trump. As a candidate, he weaponized that narrative to force, if you will, urge 24 plus Republican governors to say they did not want Syrian refugees in their state. And then he was, quite frankly, elected based on an anti-immigrant, anti-refugee message. And that led to over 1,000 changes to immigration policy under the course of the Trump administration, which now the Biden administration is working to reverse, but they need to reverse those changes and tell a different story to the American public.
Why is it so dangerous for immigration policy like Trump's to continue to permeate in the culture as we know it? What's the real impact?
Well, the real impact is, quite frankly, that we will shrink as a country, we'll become less competitive. Families from big cities to small towns, they will struggle. The tax base will erode. And again, this is not about just those big cities. It is about the small towns and communities across the country who increasingly are relying on immigrants and immigration to revitalize their economy, grow their schools, create new jobs. This is the future of our country, and it's based on our ability to recruit global talent, from the skilled engineer to the skilled farm worker. And we have got a lot of work to do to reverse what President Trump put into place so that all Americans see the value of immigrants and immigration to them and their families.
Give me your perspective on this, because I've often wondered, when I see 600 factory workers being arrested, right? And a news crew being present because the government tipped them off that they were going to do this massive arrest of undocumented workers. The same federal law that says it is illegal to hire an undocumented worker, the subsection of that federal law also says it's illegal for the worker to be there. So both are against the law. Why do we not see the owners of the companies, the CEO, the COO, the hiring manager, the human resources director, the job recruiter, why do we not see them being arrested as well?
Well, because right now with our broken immigration system, they are the only ones who are benefiting. Because of a broken immigration system, the undocumented immigrant worker is being exploited. The legal immigrant is being exploited. The US citizen worker is being exploited because that unscrupulous employer can push down the wages and the protections for all workers, and it's a rush to the bottom. Through a functioning immigration system, all workers will be able to compete for the same job at the same wage, and unscrupulous employers will not have this leverage over the working American. What's the solution? The solution is really three-pronged. One, the first part of this is for the undocumented immigrant community, approximately 10, 11 million people, get them on a path to citizenship. Ensure that they and their families can own the American dream. Second, create a functioning legal immigration system that creates a process through which immigrants can go through, instead of, quite frankly, turning their lives over to smugglers and human cartels and hoping they can present to ask for protection. And number three, and this is the hard part, but it's very important, is to have a security system, an immigration security system, an immigration enforcement system that is humane, compassionate, but also effective. I think the Biden administration needs to really make the case that they have a new approach to border security and interior enforcement, one that treats immigrants humanely, but also keeps our nation safe.
Biden is moving too damn slow for me. Do you agree with that sentiment, or you're of the mindset he needs more time?
Well, I think he's doing some great things, and there's some other things that I think he's kind of moving far too slowly on. I mean, they are checking the boxes and really working through that list of 1,000 plus changes that Trump made and reversing them. Some amazing things are happening that I think are incredibly important to the health of the country, the health of the immigrant, and to the health of all citizens. But the things that they're kind of moving slowly on are, for example, the refugee resettlement program. In Afghanistan, there are tens of thousands of Afghan nationals who helped our military during that war. We should be moving quickly, like yesterday, to evacuate them from the country, get them to a place like Guam, so their applications for special immigrant visas can be processed and they can get to the US for protection. Because they helped us, we should be able to help them. I mean, that's one issue that, quite frankly, is kind of under my skin in terms of the Biden administration moving far too slowly to protect these people who helped us.
Yeah, that situation is so sad, but it shows you the dysfunction of American imperialism and colonization. And this is why people tend to say, no, I know things are messed up, but we don't want your help, America, because of situations like this. Tell people how they can follow you on social media.
Sure. So our website is immigrationforum.org. My Twitter handle is ANOORANI, and my Instagram handle is Ali Noorani, NOORANI.
Ali, keep doing the work, brother. We appreciate you being on Indisputable.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to go anywhere. We got the Bullpen coming up, and it will be a lively one. Stick and stay. It's Indisputable.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world. We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day. We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 15 billion views.
Damn. All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively. What do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me, or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right?
Wow, man.
I can see the void.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable, Senator Sanders. Welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
I'm Nina Turner, and we are on the road to revolution, baby.
Hello, somebody. And I know sometimes people talk about the angry black woman, but I'm gonna tell you something. If you ain't mad as a mofo about what's going on here, something is wrong with you.
You know, people ask me all the time, what are the lessons from 2020? Is that progressives have to get more organized and we got to come together. We have to be as agile as neoliberals. The progressive movement has to understand that it's not just enough for us to have the right ideas. We are right on most of the ideas. We're not perfect, but we're 99% right because it is a humanitarian agenda, but we must get the power. We have to come together in a more unified way so that we utilize our power strategically to topple neoliberalism, and it's gonna happen.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read some of these comments. All right, I can't get to everyone, but I can get to a lot of you. Make sure you follow us on Indisputable TYT, Indisputable TYT. TY member Enoch Sound says, Chuck D said, these days you can't see who's in cahoots because now the KKK wears a 3-piece suit. Yes. Tiger Katsune says, current job was raided by ICE 2 years ago. No one was punished except those deported. Nowadays the company does, Nowadays the company does questionably illegal stuff to us instead. Sorry to hear that. Non-human humanist says arresting 600 migrant workers. The employer just saved himself 600 wages, right? Illegal workers can't unionize, can they? Yeah. Amy K. Blue on Twitch says, Dr. Shaw, love your show. Do you have a resource for me where we're able to write up a petition statewide to prevent news stations that provide misinformation? It is a good idea to work on the state level since it is harder to get it done on the federal level. Well, do me a favor. Make sure you tag me on social media and I'll be back in touch with you about that, okay? I would love to help you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. In the Bullpen today, I have Bryson Gray, Christian conservative artist, producer, and personality. Bryson, welcome to Indisputable. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, man. So we talked a little bit about this before the show, and I mentioned to you that I'm actually good friends with Lecrae, who's a Christian artist. And I asked you, since you are a Christian entertainer, or Christian artist yourself, had you had any contact with Lecrae? And you said to me that he's kind of lukewarm for you. And you mean that in the context of his faith belief, right?
Yeah, and me and him have had situations because I've tried to contact him. I contacted him privately before, but he denies the word of God in front of man, which is disgusting in my opinion.
Got you. You are a big anti-abortion guy, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I assume you take that from your biblical principles or the values you have received from the Bible.
Starts with that, but it's really just common sense. Even if you don't believe in the Bible, it should be common sense to be against abortion.
Okay. So let me ask you this: are you for war?
Am I for war?
Correct.
I'm against war. Take our troops out of pretty much all of these countries to stop messing with other countries.
That actually has some intellectual integrity. Are you also anti-death penalty?
I'm becoming that way. So sometimes I struggle with it because emotionally, when you see somebody messing with little kids and stuff of that nature, you want to say, I don't like that. But just to be clear, when I talk about pro-life, I'm talking about abortions, period. So I'm referring to abortion.
Well, that's the context that you would like it to only apply to. But if you utilize the phraseology pro-life, well, now I need to understand, how do you consider life in different contexts? For example, if you are a pro-life person, then I would expect you to also be pro-funding for adoption centers or pro-funding for community homes that deal with children. I was a foster child myself. So I would imagine if you're pro-life, you're also pro-life for those that are outside of the womb, is my point, right? Outside of the womb.
Well, you want to have a conversation about outside the womb, but I'm specifically dealing with inside of the womb. So I'm dealing with abortion specifically. I'm anti-abortion. It should be illegal. Very simple.
Okay, because you believe life begins at conception?
Yes, I believe the definition of a cell is the smallest form of life by definition in biology. So then if you apply that to a human, we're talking about a human cell. So then if that's human life and you're taking it away, then obviously you shouldn't be able to do that.
Let me be graphic with you. Does sperm have a cell?
Yes.
Is that a human being?
No, I know. That's what I said, the smallest form of life. So if you talk about a human cell, when a sperm goes into the egg okay, I'm not going through that. We all know what happens. And then when it starts growing, obviously it's doing that. And that's why you here, that's why I'm here. That's why everybody's here right now, is because of that right there. So let's not play these little weird games. We know exactly.
We're not playing games, brother. Okay. We're having an open conversation. Because if your faith belief informs you of your stance on a woman's right to choose, let's be okay with challenging the conversation. And I will let you speak and I'll speak. So let me pose this question to you. When we talk about life, we're not talking about biological function, because there's a lot of biological function. We can spit on the ground and there's biology in the spit. You're not trying to save the spit, brother. So we're not talking about biological function. We're talking about a soul being placed inside of the body and a soul being present inside of the womb. That's what we're really talking about, correct? That's what makes it life.
No, I made what I said very specific. That's why I said when somebody releases a sperm and it comes with the egg and it starts creating life, when that come together and life starts growing, period. That's a human cell. So the fact that you're taking that away, and let's not act like that's when most abortions happen. Most abortions happen later than that, which is more disgusting. So later we start doing that is murder. And not only it should be simply illegal. No, I don't want no exceptions.
All right, so what about in cases of rape?
No exceptions.
In cases of molestation?
No exceptions.
In cases of incest?
No exceptions.
Now, let me go back to your ideology about where life begins. We can all agree that in the story of Adam and Eve, or Ahadam, that Adam was a biological entity first. And this biology that had the format of life, cells were functioning. There was a biological process, because according to the text that you say informs your belief on abortion, God created Adam, or God created man. So now you have your biology. But man did not become living, brother, which means Adam, as a biological entity, according to the scripture, was not living until something happened to Adam. What happened to Adam that made him a living soul?
I know what you're about to say. God breathed breath into him, but my answer is that God knew you before the womb, before you was in the womb.
Okay, so you answered the question that in the scripture that you base your opinion on, or base your faith value on, that Adam was actually a biological creature, a biological presence that had the function of life. However, scripture says that is not what made him living. He did not become living until there was a respiratory function, until God breathed into Adam, and the Bible says Adam thus became a living soul. So that means that Adam can exist biologically first without actually being living second.
There's a huge problem with this comparison you're using. The huge problem is Adam wasn't born of a woman. He was the first man created by God. And then the woman Eve was created from the rib. That's why I brought up the other scripture that said, I knew you even before you was in the womb. Period. And that's quite simple. One of the things God hates is a shedding of innocent blood.
Well, let's go back to that. And I appreciate the conversation, brother. You and I disagree totally on the concept here, but I appreciate the open conversation. Now, the scripture you just mentioned is actually in Jeremiah 1. And God is specifically talking about Jeremiah the prophet. And the wording is, before you were in the womb of your mother, I knew you, I ordained you a prophet unto the nation. So just as you utilize the scripture in the book of Genesis to apply to a one-time situation, why do you not use the scripture in Jeremiah to apply specifically as it is stated to a one-time situation?
I gave you another scripture, you ignored it.
Okay, what was the other one? Where is it at?
I said one of the 6 things God hates is the shedding of innocent blood.
Well, we understand that, brother. And once again, that is in reference to life. And we've already established that you can have biology without having life. That's according to the text that you read in Genesis.
Are babies in a womb as they're growing? Is that not life?
I do not believe they are. No, I do not believe that's a living soul. Sir, you asked me, hold on, brother. You asked me a question. The answer to your question is, I do not believe an embryo is a living soul until there is a respiratory function. That's my belief. Your belief can be different than mine.
So as they're growing and as they're getting basically food from the mother and getting everything from the mother as so they can grow. You're telling me that is not a living thing?
No, I do not believe that's a living soul, sir. I do believe it has the biology or the biological processes of life, just as your spit does or other elements connected to your body. But I do not believe it is an actual living soul. That is what I believe. Yes, let me take you to a policy. You do realize.
Just real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. When you use a spit, it's very interesting, and you're using the term "living soul" instead soul instead of life. I see why you're using that. But we talk about spit. Spit is a totally different ballgame because a spit is not growing. It's not. It's not growing. It's not getting bigger. It's not learning how to do things. It's not functioning that way because spit is obviously not life.
I got you, brother. And you have your belief, and I respect your belief and your value system. So you're a guy, you want to see less abortions happen in America. Do you support Republicans politically?
I'm a conservative. Republicans are starting to go towards further left, so they have pissed me off as of late.
But you do support conservatives that are, I guess, anti-abortion, right? Or anti-woman's right to choose. You support them.
I support that specific policy.
Okay, let me read to you some actual data. Now, this is not a projection. This is what has already happened. During the last 30 years, that's a long time, brother. The most dramatic decrease in abortion rates in America has happened under Democratic presidents, not Republican presidents. Republican or conservative presidents have either kept it the same or increased the number of actual abortions in the United States. Let me read some stats. Per 1,000 women, Reagan from 1981 to 1989 had the number at 24 per 1,000. This was rates per every 1,000 women, according to the CDC. H.W. Bush had it at 24, which kept it steady. Clinton had it at 16.2, which dropped it. Bush had it at 16 as well. And then President Obama gets in and he dramatically decreases it to 11. All right, so the most dramatic and the only decreases of actual abortion rates in the United States of America happened under Democratic presidents, which would mean if you're considering saving more lives, if you believe that abortions or abortion is murder, then you have to consider voting for a Democrat and not a Republican, because under conservatives, the abortion rate actually increases, and under Democrats, it actually decreases.
Well, none of them statutes brought up affects me at all, because like I made clear multiple times, I want it illegal, meaning it shouldn't happen, period. So them stats has no effect on me.
All right, you do realize how ridiculous it sounds when you say you want a person who was raped to be forced to have a child. You want a girl, a child who was molested to be forced to have a baby. You realize how dumb as hell that sounds, right?
Well, it wasn't the baby that raped that person, so I don't think that's an exception.
Say that again.
The baby that's growing inside of you didn't rape you, didn't molest you. The man hopefully is in jail and or dead. But
wait a minute. So you want that person punished for taking away the choice of another individual, but you don't want that individual to have a choice as it relates to carrying the embryo into term.
No, incorrect. I want that person to be punished for raping and or molesting. I know a lot of times people try to use blanket terms like a choice, so you can use that in another place. But no, I'm specifically talking about raping and molesting because you said those words.
This is fascinating. So, and what's interesting, Bryson, is that there's a policy, or at least it existed temporarily in the state of Alabama. Alabama passed a law, and I'm sure you were very happy about this law until the court overturned it, that said even in cases of rape, abortion would still be illegal in Alabama. That law did get overturned, but keep in mind, it did get passed. And literally in Alabama, a person would get more time for aborting the fetus than what the rapist would get for raping the woman. Does that make sense to you?
No, I don't agree with that last aspect. Okay. Obviously, the person that raped the woman needs to get life. Any person that rapes somebody should get life in prison. But I do like the fact that they did that law outside of that last part.
Do you have children?
No, but I will. I have 3 siblings.
You have sisters?
I have a little sister, correct.
You ever thought if somebody raped your little sister, you wouldn't want her to have the child of the rapist, or at least have her?
Nope, my sister, she will have the child.
Because you will force her to have it?
Nope, because she was a Bible-believing Christian like me, and she doesn't believe in abortion.
So if your sister, God forbid, was raped,
we could talk to her. She's upstairs.
You would, well, I can have on the show another time. I'm talking to you today.
Okay.
You would counsel her to not have an abortion, but to in fact have the child of the rapist.
I already know she would have it, but I will tell her you better not get no abortion. All three, I was like, do not get no abortion. I tell everybody that who even thinks about having an abortion. I talk to people in my DMs sometimes think about having an abortion, but it's never really based on rape. We argue on something that's very rare. The majority of cases is convenience. Women just want convenience because women want to be out here having sex with who knows what, when no, and who nobody knows, and then they want to get an abortion. So it's usually out of convenience, but you haven't brought that up once.
And that's because women have talked to you and told you this?
It's just per statistics. Every statistics, rape is like less than 2% of abortions.
Why do you think the number of abortions actually decreases under Democrats and typically increases or stays the same under Republicans? Why do you think that is?
Genuinely, I do not know. But what I care? No, because I want it to be illegal. So what I do know is,
so you don't care about the actual fetuses or the embryo. You don't care about that. You just care about this one damn law. You don't care about the actual preserving of life. You don't care what the number is. You just care about this one issue that is a law that you want to see passed. You don't care what the actual numbers are.
Incorrect, sir. I'm not saying it's not a positive if abortions were decreased. But what I do know, and the reason I said I don't care, is what I do know is if it was illegal, them numbers would decrease significantly because you would have to take a risk to go get an abortion illegally.
That's another untrue statement.
So many statistics from before it was
what
legal.
You will have, well, we do have some stats of illegal abortions that led to the death of the mother. Because they were utilizing clothes hangers and people created a black market system so that you can go and seek these abortions. The bottom line is, brother, that women have had this choice legally or illegally, and instead of focusing on the policy that you're trying to push, which is completely adversarial to any common sense known to man, to push that kind of ideology without respecting a woman's right to choose, especially in situations that are egregious as rape, brother, I'm disappointed.
But I do believe in a woman's right to choose. Because in most cases, it's convenience. She can make that choice in the bedroom, just like she make every other choice in her life. So once you make that choice in the bedroom, you have to deal with, you a grown adult woman in most cases. You need to deal with what you just did. So you can't just get rid of your responsibilities and take away a life because of you convenience. Stop being a little thought.
That's what they are to you, their thoughts to you.
Yeah, promiscuous women, correct.
Yeah, you got a woman?
Yes, I have a girlfriend, yep.
Okay, and you don't have children?
Nope, but just real quick, my girlfriend was actually adopted at 2 years old, and she was raised by wonderful parents, which is another reason why I'm very pro-life. I was already pro-life, but just that alone, and she's a very intelligent woman, and her mother is left for the
I'm glad you said that. I was a foster child myself. Do you advocate for stronger policies to make sure foster children have access to higher education, to opportunities in the marketplace, job training skills, etc.? Do you advocate for that?
Job training skills, yes. I'm not a fan of these universities. I think people need to homeschool their kids.
Oh, that's a shock. You're not a fan of college. Okay, that's a shock.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, just school period, not just college. It's public school system, private school system. No matter what it is, all they're doing is indoctrinating our children. That's why a lot of liberals, they claim that they didn't become liberals until they left college.
I got you, man. That's just, I mean, this has been I don't know, interesting. I can say that. So are you a big MAGA guy? Are you a Trumpite?
I'm gonna talk about Trumpite because I'm God first, obviously. But I do support Trump. But right now I'm still focused on 2020, not really worried about 2024. I'm surprised we didn't get to the LGBT stuff.
But you know, wait a minute, it's 2021 though, brother. Yeah,
the election was obviously stolen, in my opinion. I feel like Well, you're laughing, but why?
Yeah, I'm laughing at you. You're absolutely correct. You called that one. That's the first true thing you said on this show.
Why are they trying to block audits?
Okay, brother. What's really interesting about all of this is that the places that are having audits, the audits are not being blocked. Georgia has had multiple audits. Arkansas has had multiple audits. A lot of states had audits. But you also have judges that were appointed by Donald Trump who said to these cases of election fraud, these are frivolous cases. So you mean to tell me that judges appointed by Trump himself decided to engage in a massive conspiracy to steal the election from Donald Trump? And this included not only judges, but also all of the Republican governors, all of the White House staff, and including Mike Pence himself. You think it was that kind of massive cover-up, correct?
Well, if you look into what the judges he appointed did, and granted, I do agree with you that he, in my opinion, Trump sometimes his judgment of character is a little off. But
a little off.
Yeah, but the judges he appointed, nobody didn't even give a real investigation into the cases. And like I said, I was surprised we didn't. I mean, it's true. I was surprised we didn't get to the LGBT stuff, because you'll be more shocked at my views on that.
Okay. What's your, and we got like 2 minutes, man. You wanted to say something about LGBTQ rights?
Well, and censorship, we didn't get to that. But of course, I want same-sex marriage illegal, common sense. But also, as far as censorship, social media companies, especially the ones that are publicly traded, shouldn't have these like these Section 230 immunity things surrounding them. Because my music just got banned on some of the biggest platforms in the country, as far as Spotify and SoundCloud. Yeah. And how can you ban my music but still have music about murder? And
let me tell you why private companies can do that, and it is not antithetical to the Constitution. Your freedom of speech is a freedom that does have restrictions. Now remember, your freedom of speech basically says the government cannot do anything to intrude on that freedom, right? Or penalize you for having said freedom when you exercise that freedom. But private companies, for example, TYT is a private company. Indisputable is a show at this private company. If I wanted you to be off my show, I could just cut your mic. I haven't violated your constitutional rights. Maybe I've offended you, brother, but I have not violated your constitutional rights. So when you make a constitutional argument,
I didn't,
because of a private company, what they decide to do with your music, that doesn't equate. It's not a constitutional issue.
I did. You brought up Constitution. I said nothing about the Constitution.
So you're just saying private companies should do what you want them to do?
No, incorrect. But okay. if you're gonna ban my music,
okay,
you have to ban other music similar to that.
Like well, they don't have to, brother. They don't.
And this is where we get into the thing.
They're not Christians like you, brother.
Oh no. And now this is the argument. Now my argument is discrimination, right? Y'all like that word?
Oh, just discrimination. I got
it. But it is discrimination. I can prove it's discrimination by emails, and I can pull up 1,000 popular songs.
And they're discriminating against your lyrics?
Yes, they are.
Got you, man. All right.
Discriminate against my belief system. Correct.
Gotcha, man. Well, you continue that fight, brother. Do you? All right. I appreciate you being on Indisputable. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, before I exit, let me read some of the comments, okay? MJ Jackson says almost most conservatives, also most of conservatives support foreign regimes who have pro-abortion policies like Netanyahu in Israel. So what good is it to be anti-abortion at home but pro-abortion abroad? Good point, Sun Dragon. First Testament, what about all of the babies that died innocently in the wombs of their mother when he flooded the earth? J.R. Alfred says, love the show, keep up the great work. I hope you get to moderate the next president election. We're working on it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to make sure you stay for Deep Dive with Jordan Yule on Twitch, all right? Deep Dive coming up next. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.